The Empire's surprise at the galaxy had always been ruled by the Galactic Empire, an unstoppable force that had crushed countless rebellions and maintained control over countless planets for centuries. Their fleets were unmatched, their soldiers well-trained, and their technology superior. They had made an example out of every species that dared to defy them. And as far as they were concerned, humanity Earth was nothing more than a small, insignificant planet, far beneath their notice, but all of that was about to change. The first signs of trouble came quietly, almost unnoticed. A small, seemingly insignificant human ship had entered the Empire's space without warning. It was not a large vessel, just a small freighter. And it wasn't even flying under the banner of a known human military force, yet it was enough to make the Empire's scouts take notice. It didn't take long for the Empire's defense network to spot the tiny human ship moving swiftly through space, but even then, no one thought it was a threat. The ship was intercepted, its crew quickly taken captive, and its mission was questioned by the Empire's high commanders. What they found, however, would set off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. Inside the ship, hidden beneath layers of false cargo, was a transmission that would shake the Empire to its core. It was a simple message, a single line of text that was as bold as it was cryptic. "You haven't seen our real army yet." It was sent to the highest-ranking officers in the Empire. They laughed it off at first, dismissing it as an empty threat. They had faced rebellions before, and they had crushed them with ease. This was just another group of rebels trying to get attention. But as the Empire dug deeper into the message, something strange happened. The ship's databanks revealed that it had been transmitting messages to many different parts of the galaxy. More than just a few local rebels, it was as if the entire human race was preparing for something. The Galactic Empire had never considered humanity a real threat. Earth, with its primitive technology and isolated position in the galaxy, had always been viewed as a fringe world. The Empire had believed that humans were content to live quietly under their rule, with no real interest in challenging the galactic order. But now, this one message, this small, seemingly insignificant ship suggested something for different. "What are we missing?" General Kor, one of the Empire's top military minds, asked, looking over the data. He was the first to recognize the potential danger. The message was more than just a threat. It was a warning. "What if they're not just talking about a few ships?" he asked, pacing in front of his command table. "What if they're preparing a full-scale invasion?" The thought was almost laughable. Humanity invade the Galactic Empire? It sounded impossible, but Kor wasn't laughing now. He could feel it, the growing sense of unease in the pit of his stomach. The Empire had never faced a true challenge. Sure, there had been uprisings, but they were easily crushed. This, however, was different. The message seemed too direct. Too sure of itself, Kor pushed a button on his console, opening a communication channel to his superiors. "We need to move fast. Get every available ship in position. I don't care if it's just a few human ships, we'll squash them before they have a chance to do anything, but we need to know more. This isn't just about us being the strongest force in the galaxy anymore." As the orders went out, the Empire's elite forces were put into motion. They assumed that it was nothing more than a few isolated human groups trying to make a name for themselves. They would send out their ships, capture whatever humans they found, and shut down the threat before it could grow. Simple, easy. But what they didn't know was that the true strength of humanity wasn't just in the number of ships they could send. It wasn't about a single fleet or even an army. It was something much more dangerous: their ability to surprise. The Empire's fleet was vast, but it was also slow to respond to small threats. Their massive warships were designed to intimidate, not to chase down small, fast-moving targets. And as the Empire's ships moved out, searching for any signs of human rebellion, they failed to realize that they were being led into a trap. The first real shock came when a small human fleet, hidden in the depths of space, appeared out of nowhere. It wasn't much at first, just a few ships, barely noticeable among the vastness of the galaxy. But their speed and precision were enough to give the Empire's fleet pause. They didn't engage immediately. Instead, they circled, waiting for the right moment. The human ship started between asteroids and nebulas, using the cover of space to remain hidden. "Where are they?" General Kor demanded as his ships scoured the sector, looking for any signs of the elusive humans. The Empire's sensors were failing to pick up anything significant, and that only deepened the suspicion that something wasn't right. And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the human ships launched a surprise attack on one of the Empire's supply ships, destroying it in seconds. The explosion lit up the dark void, a flash of light so powerful it could be seen from light years away. The Empire's fleet was caught off guard. This wasn't the way the rebellion was supposed to go. They had expected something bigger, more organized. They hadn't expected such skill and coordination from a species they had considered weak. And just as the Empire began to react, the message from that small human ship flashed again on their screens. "You haven't seen our real army yet." This time, the laughter stopped. Asterisk, the first strike. The Empire was reeling from the surprise attack. General Kor sat at his command console, his fingers clenched tightly around the armrest. The explosion that had just obliterated one of their most valuable supply ships was no small incident. The sheer audacity of it all had left him rattled. Humanity had crossed a line, but more than that, they had shown something far more troubling: coordination, precision, and an uncanny understanding of the Empire's tactics. As Kor watched the sensors, his mind raced. The human ships had disappeared. As quickly as they had come, they knew how to move undetected, using the debris of space to their advantage, avoiding detection like ghosts in the dark. But their strike was not the only thing that troubled him. It was the timing. The Empire had always prided itself on its superiority, and for good reason. Their ships were enormous, heavily armed, and built for total dominance, yet here they were, being outsmarted by a species they had long dismissed as primitive. It felt like a bad joke. But Kor didn't laugh. "Admiral," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Captain Talon, one of his most trusted officers. "There's more. The humans have been in contact with several distant systems. They're rallying support from the outer reaches of the galaxy." "Support?" Kor repeated, disbelief in his voice. "From who?" Talon shrugged. "We don't know yet, but they've been spreading their message far and wide. It's gaining traction." Kor's mind raced again. It wasn't just a few rebellious humans. The message had struck a chord somewhere with someone. And now the Empire was faced with a far larger problem than a few isolated skirmishes. If Earth had managed to rally other systems, the scale of the threat was far greater than anticipated. "What are the orders, sir?" Talon asked, her voice tense. "Do we move in for a full assault?" Kor paused, taking in a long breath. The decision weighed heavily on him. The Empire had never faced a rebellion of this magnitude. The stakes were high, but the risks were even higher. If they underestimated humanity's strength any further, they could find themselves facing something even worse than they feared. "No," Kor said at last, his voice steady. "We'll take a more calculated approach. We're not going to give them a reason to unite more systems against us. Let's get the intelligence we need and plan a strike that will end this." But even as he spoke the words, doubt crept into his mind. Humanity had something they hadn't expected, something they couldn't quite grasp yet. And they had no idea just how far this new war would go. Meanwhile, on the Genesis, Commander Carter was staring at the same star maps, but his thoughts were different. He knew the first strike had been successful, but he could feel the weight of what was coming next. He had been preparing for this moment for a long time, but even he couldn't shake the tension that ran through his bones. This wasn't just about humanity's survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that Earth was more than just a forgotten corner of space. "Captain," Lieutenant Sophia said, looking up from the tactical console, her face filled with concern, "the Empire knows about our involvement. We're not just some rogue group anymore. They've already begun their preparations for a larger response." Carter nodded grimly. "I know. But that doesn't change anything. We knew this day would come." Sophia looked at him, then back at the console. "Our ships are ready for another strike. But we don't have the numbers to match the Empire's fleet. They'll overwhelm us if we don't move carefully." Carter turned to face his crew, his expression unwavering. "That's why we need to outsmart them. The Empire is arrogant, and they think they can crush us with sheer force, but they're wrong. They've underestimated us, and now we're going to make them pay for it. They don't even know what we've been hiding." With a sense of quiet resolve, Carter gave the order for the next phase of humanity's fight. A fleet of ships, stealthier than ever, was to strike the Empire's supply chains once more. The humans weren't just attacking to survive anymore. They were attacking to send a message. Earth was not going to back down. As the Genesis and its fleet moved towards a major Empire outpost, Carter could feel the tension in the air. This was no longer about small strikes or guerrilla warfare. This was a calculated move, one that could tilt the scales of power in humanity's favor. The operation went smoothly, with the Empire's forces completely unaware of the attack until it was too late. Humanity's ships, equipped with cloaking technology and advanced weapons, struck swiftly. Empire defenses that were once thought impenetrable were now vulnerable. The humans had finally broken through. In less than an hour, critical supply depots had been destroyed, and the Empire's flagship battleships were left in disarray. As the human fleet moved in for the final strike, Carter's voice came over the intercom. "Target their main command center. This is the real message. We're not here to just disrupt, we're here to take control." Back at the Empire's command base, General Kor was watching the damage unfold in real time. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white with fury. This was no longer just a small rebellion, it was an organized and well-planned war. Humanity was smarter than they had ever realized, and the idea that they were still fighting back with such precision shook the Empire to its core. Core had underestimated them. Now, it seemed the tables had turned. Prepare the fleet for immediate retaliation, Core ordered. We're going to show them what happens when you push the Empire too far. But even as he gave the orders, he couldn't shake the feeling that the fight ahead wouldn't be as easy as he had hoped. Humanity had just revealed its true strength, and Core had no idea how much more they had hidden. The real question now was, could the Empire ever recover from this? Asterisk hidden strengths revealed. The aftermath of the attack was an uneasy silence. The fleet had returned to the Genesis, their mission completed, but the reality of their success felt more like the calm before the storm. Commander Carter stood at the observation window, watching the stars flicker in the distance. For the first time since humanity had begun its resistance, he felt a strange mixture of hope and dread. The Genesis had delivered a devastating blow to the Empire, but Carter knew better than anyone this was just the beginning. The Empire was vast and powerful, and though humanity had taken the first step toward breaking their rule, there would be many more battles ahead. Report, Sophia, Carter said, his voice low but commanding. He turned toward his first officer, who was monitoring the status of their fleet. Sophia looked up from her console, her expression unreadable. The Empire's response is already being organized. We've crippled their supply lines, but their command ships are still intact. It won't take long for them to regroup. Carter nodded. The fight ahead wasn't going to be easy. The Empire had many resources, and humanity could not rely solely on their surprise attacks. If they wanted to win this war, they would need more than just guerrilla tactics. Then it's time we show them what we've really been preparing for, Carter said, a fire in his eyes. Sophia's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Carter turned to face her, a determined look crossing his face. The time has come to reveal what we've been hiding for all these years. We have more than just the Genesis. Deep within the bowels of the Genesis, the crew began preparations for the most secretive phase of their plan for months. Carter and his high-ranking officers had been working in the shadows, developing technology that could shift the course of the war in humanity's favor. This wasn't just about advanced weaponry. This was about humanity's most hidden asset, an ancient fleet of warships buried for generations, lying dormant beneath the surface of the Genesis. Sophia and several engineers entered a restricted area of the ship, walking past tightly sealed doors and security checkpoints. The corridors were dimly lit, filled with the hum of advanced machinery. Their mission was simple: unlock the ancient fleet that had been hidden from the galaxy for centuries. As they reached the control center of the hidden fleet, Sophia couldn't help but feel the weight of what they were about to do. Are you sure this is the right move, Captain? She asked Carter, her voice filled with uncertainty. We've kept this a secret for a reason. Unleashing it now, it could change everything. Carter's gaze remained steady. This is exactly why we've kept it hidden. The Empire believes they know us, but they have no idea what we've been preparing. It's time to show them. Sophia looked at the massive vaults where rows of sleek, alien-designed ships stood silent and still, their engines cold but waiting. These ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen, fast, nearly invisible to sensors, and equipped with devastating weaponry that could tear through even the most advanced shields. As Sophia's team activated the fleet's systems, the air around them seemed to crackle with anticipation. A series of soft hums filled the room as the dormant ships began to power up. The lights flickered, and the ancient warships slowly began to rise from their resting places, their massive forms dwarfing the Genesis. These ships, long thought lost to history, were now humanity's most powerful assets. Back at the command center, Carter watched as the fleet's systems came online. The glowing holographic display in front of him showed the fleet's readiness. It was time. The enemy wouldn't expect this. Humanity had kept this fleet hidden for a reason, and now it was their trump card. Prepare the fleet, Carter ordered, his voice resolute. We're moving out. The command center buzzed with activity as the crew members scrambled to follow his orders. Outside, the Genesis and the ancient fleet emerged into space, their sleek forms cutting through the stars like predators on the hunt. The fleet was smaller than the Empire's, but each ship was far more advanced, their weapons far more devastating. Their technology was a mix of human ingenuity and alien designs, giving them an edge that even the Empire's best fleets couldn't match. Set course for the Empire's central command station, Carter commanded. We're not waiting for them to regroup. We're going to strike before they even have time to breathe. As the fleet moved into position, a message was sent across the galaxy, not to the Empire, but to the wider galaxy, to all the systems that had long been under the Empire's thumb. It was a simple, bold declaration: humanity is no longer a Secret, the galaxy will never be the same again. The Empire's leaders watched in stunned silence as the human fleet approached. They had expected the Genesis to be a temporary nuisance, but this was something else entirely. The ships that now moved through space were not just powerful, they were ancient. Built by a long-lost civilization, and they were loyal only to humanity. General Core, we need to act, one of the Empire's commanders said urgently. They've revealed their hidden fleet. If we don't act now, they'll destroy everything. Core stood frozen, his mind racing. The humans had done the impossible. They had made themselves a true threat to the Empire. And now it was clear, the galaxy's balance of power was shifting. Prepare our forces. Core growled. We are not going to let humanity take control of the galaxy. Send everything we have to stop them. But deep inside, Core knew the truth. Humanity's hidden strength was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. And now they were about to show the galaxy that the Empire was not the only force capable of dominating the stars. Back on the Genesis, Carter stood in the command center, his heart beating steadily in time with the ship's engines. The time had come, humanity had sent its message, but now they had to fight for it. As the first wave of the Empire's counterattack came into view, Carter's eyes narrowed. The real war had just begun, and this time humanity wasn't going to hide. They were going to make their mark on the galaxy, whether the Empire liked it or not. The Galactic Council reacts as the Genesis and its fleet of ancient warships soared through space. A calm dread settled over the Galactic Empire's highest ranks. Word of humanity's shocking reveal had spread like wildfire across the galaxy, quickly reaching the ears of the Galactic Council, the ruling body that oversaw the Empire's reign. The council chambers were bustling with activity, as representatives from the many star systems that formed the backbone of the Empire gathered to discuss the unprecedented threat. General Core stood in the center of the council room, his expression grim as the most powerful figures in the galaxy debated their next move. The council was a mix of military strategists, political leaders, and influential businessmen, all with one shared goal: maintain the Empire's dominance at any cost. But now, their unity was fractured. How did we not know? One council member demanded, his voice booming across the room. How could we not know that humanity had this kind of power? Core took a step forward, his eyes scanning the room. This is not a simple rebellion. Humanity has shown a level of preparation we've never seen before. They've hidden their true strength, biding their time, and now they've revealed it at the worst possible moment. One of the senior council members, Lady Valora, stood up, her voice cutting through the tension. Enough with the excuses. General, we've let this planet grow into a thorn in our side. What are you going to do about it? You promised us that Earth would never rise against us. We underestimated them, Core admitted, his voice low. But I'm not making the same mistake again. A murmur of unease rippled through the room. The council had always been confident that the Empire's overwhelming might would keep systems like Earth in check. Now, with the Genesis and its fleet of hidden warships moving through the stars, the balance of power was teetering on the edge. Then, we strike, a voice called from the back of the room. It was Sir, a ruthless military leader known for his brutal tactics. We crush them. We send everything we have. Let them see the might of the Empire when it's unleashed. But we don't know what we're truly up against, Core warned. These ships are unlike anything we've encountered. Humanity's tactics are precise, and their weapons are stronger than we anticipated. Sar's eyes gleamed with cold anger. Then we outnumber them. The Empire has thousands of ships ready for battle. What's one small fleet compared to us? The tension in the room thickened. While Sar's confidence was hard to ignore, there was an underlying fear in the air, something Core couldn't shake. The problem wasn't that humanity had a few ships, it was that humanity had a hidden force, one that the Empire could not easily overpower. And even more terrifying, they had the element of surprise on their side. Humanity's plan had unfolded with chilling precision, and it was clear that they had no intention of backing down. What if they have more hidden? Lady Valora asked, quietly, her eyes narrowing as the implications of the question settled over the room. If this fleet was just the beginning, what else could they be hiding? Enough, Core snapped, his frustration boiling over. We don't have time to second-guess ourselves. The time for talking is over. We strike now. We'll crush them before they can regroup. No more hiding, no more secrets. The council fell silent. And for a brief moment, Core saw doubt flicker in their eyes. They were all aware of the risks. But the alternative was too terrifying to consider. The Empire's legacy had to be protected, and the threat of humanity's growing strength couldn't be allowed to fester. We'll send our fleets to meet them head-on, Core declared, his voice commanding. Prepare to engage the humans in full force. All systems are to be on high alert. We will not let Earth take this galaxy. Back on the Genesis, Carter and his crew were making their final preparations for the coming storm. As they neared the Heart of the Empire's controlled space, the mood on board was tense. But it was also filled with determination. They had sent their message. They had revealed their hidden strength. Now, all they had to do was follow through. "We're almost there," Sophia said, her voice steady as she ran the final diagnostic checks on the fleet. The ancient warships hummed with power, their engines coming to life after years of dormancy. "Are we ready?" Carter turned to face his crew, his eyes shining with the intensity of the moment. "Ready. We've been ready for this our entire lives. The galaxy won't forget who we are after today. We fight not just for Earth, but for every world the Empire has oppressed." Sophia nodded, her expression resolute. "Let's make sure they remember." Just then, the alert system blared to life. A massive fleet of Empire ships appeared on their sensors, the readings confirming that the Empire had taken the bait. They were coming. And they were coming with everything they had. "Here they come," Carter said calmly. "All ships, prepare for battle. We make our stand now." The crew moved quickly, taking their stations with precision. The warships of the Genesis were ready, their advanced systems glowing with energy. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was humanity's moment to prove that they were no longer the weak underdogs the Empire had dismissed. And as the fleet of Empire ships loomed ever closer, the final message was clear: humanity was not afraid. Humanity was no longer the prey. A bold counterattack war had already begun, but now, as the Genesis and its hidden fleet faced off against the vast might of the Galactic Empire, both sides could feel the tension in the air thick as the cold vacuum of space. Humanity had made its declaration, and the Empire, for the first time in centuries, was faced with a real challenge to its dominance. But it wasn't over yet. The Empire's first wave of retaliation was coming, and this time they were bringing everything. "Captain, the enemy fleet is larger than anticipated. They've mobilized the full force of their armada," Sophia reported, her voice calm, though there was an unmistakable edge of urgency. Carter stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the holographic displays. The Empire's fleet was massive, dozens of enormous battleships, reinforced by a swarm of smaller, agile vessels. But Carter wasn't worried. The humans had spent years preparing for this moment, and they had a secret weapon that the Empire could never expect. "Prepare the fleet for engagement," Carter said, his voice steady. "We're going to show them just how strong we are." The crew moved quickly, their faces lit by the glow of the ship's systems. They had proven their worth once, but this time would be different. The Empire was no longer underestimating them, and that meant the stakes were higher. It would be a fight to the end. As the enemy ships approached, the Genesis and its fleet of ancient warships began to move into formation. The hum of the ship's engines was nearly deafening, but it was a sound Carter had come to rely on. The weapons were ready, the shields online. They were as prepared as they could be. On the Empire's flagship, General Kor watched as the human fleet came into view. He had prepared for this moment for days, but seeing the mass of humanity's ships, those sleek, mysterious vessels, so unlike anything he had ever encountered, sent a wave of unease through his chest. "Deploy the fighters," Kor ordered. "We'll break their line. The Empire's might will crush them." The Empire's fighters shot out from the flagship like a swarm of hornets, moving toward the Genesis with deadly precision. It was a tactic they had used countless times: overwhelm the enemy with numbers, swarm them until they had nowhere to run. But as the human fleet activated its shields and weapons, Kor's confidence began to falter. The human ships weren't running, they weren't retreating. They were engaging with a force and determination Kor had not expected. "This is no small resistance," Kor muttered to himself, watching the initial assault unfold. "This is a fight for survival." Back on the Genesis, Carter gave the order: launch the counteroffensive, no mercy. They won't know what hit them. The human fleet unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, their weapons cutting through the oncoming swarm of enemy fighters with precision. The Empire's forces tried to retaliate, but humanity's ships were too agile, too unpredictable. The Genesis darted between asteroids, using the debris of space as cover, all while unleashing devastating energy blasts that tore through the Empire's fighters like paper. The Empire was beginning to realize that humanity wasn't just a threat, they were a force to be reckoned with. The first few moments of the battle were chaotic, but soon it became clear the humans weren't afraid. Sophia was at the tactical station, her fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, their fighter fleet is breaking apart. We've disabled half of their fighters in the first 5 minutes." Carter didn't smile. He knew better than to get cocky. "Stay focused. This is just the first wave. We need to take out their command ships." At that moment, the Genesis and its fleet of warships powered forward, locking onto the Empire's command vessels. These ships were the heart of the Empire's military, and if humanity could destroy them, the Empire's ability to command the battle would crumble. "Target their lead command ship," Carter ordered, "Full power to the weapons, we take it out." We crippled their forces, the massive energy beams fired from the Genesis. The beams so intense that they lit up the dark expanse of space. The Empire's lead command ship fired back with everything it had, but humanity's firepower was too much. The command ship's shields flared before collapsing entirely, and within seconds, the ship was engulfed in flames. A cheer erupted from the crew. But Carter held up his hand to quiet them. "Don't get distracted, we've only just begun." The Empire's leaders watched in shock as their most powerful warships fell to the human fleet. The fight was turning in humanity's favor, and Core knew that things were slipping out of their control. The battle had escalated beyond anything they had anticipated. "We need backup, now." Core barked into his communicator, "Send in the reinforcements. The humans are too strong, we cannot allow them to win this." But even as the reinforcements arrived, the humans were ready. The Genesis and its fleet had already taken down half of the Empire's forward command ships, and the remaining Empire forces were struggling to keep up. Humanity's tactics, combined with their hidden fleet and advanced technology, had given them an unexpected advantage. Core could feel the tide turning, but he wasn't ready to admit defeat. The war was far from over, and the Empire would fight back with everything it had. But for the first time, Core realized that this wasn't going to be the easy victory the Empire had expected. Humanity was in this for the long haul, and they were winning. Back on the Genesis, Carter knew the battle wasn't won yet. But seeing the Empire's flagship ships crumbling under humanity's assault filled him with a quiet sense of satisfaction. The odds were still stacked against them, but humanity had proven something today. They were no longer the underdog. The Empire had underestimated them, and now it was too late. "We've made our mark," Carter said, watching the shattered remains of the Empire's fighters drift through space. "But the real fight is still ahead. They'll come for us, but when they do, we'll be ready." The galaxy had just witnessed humanity's strength, and now the Empire knew this was only the beginning. The ultimate weapon unleashed. War had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. The Empire, reeling from the devastation the Genesis and its hidden fleet had caused, was now desperate. They had sent their most powerful forces, but humanity was not backing down. The Empire's once unshakable confidence was beginning to crack. But the Empire's response was already in motion. Reinforcements had arrived in massive numbers, and they were prepared for the battle of a lifetime. On the Genesis, Commander Carter stood before a holographic display, watching as the last remnants of the Empire's fleet regrouped. The human forces had gained ground, but Carter knew the war was far from over. Humanity's survival was still in jeopardy, and the Empire would not let them win easily. "We've done more than we ever thought possible," Sophia said, her voice quiet but full of admiration. "But we need more firepower to turn this around." Carter's eyes narrowed. "And we have it. It's time to unleash everything we've been hiding." Sophia looked at him, a mix of confusion and concern on her face. "Are you sure? We've kept that weapon locked away for a reason." Carter's gaze hardened. "If we don't do this now, all the sacrifices we've made will be for nothing. The Empire has underestimated us for too long, and now it's time to show them just what humanity is capable of." The weapon Carter referred to was humanity's greatest secret, an ancient, colossal warship designed centuries ago, more powerful than any other ship the galaxy had ever seen. It was hidden deep within the Genesis, a weapon so massive it had remained dormant for generations. The ship's immense power could change the course of the war in an instant, but at a cost. As Carter gave the order, the ship's systems began to hum with energy. The crew worked in unison, their hands flying across the consoles as the Genesis powered up the ancient ship's engines. Deep within the bowels of the warship, the dormant vessel came to life, its massive form slowly emerging from the shadows. The ship's surface shimmered with an eerie, ethereal glow, and its energy readings surged, dwarfing anything the Empire had ever seen. "It's time," Carter said, watching the hologram of the immense warship slowly come into view on the display. The weapon had been kept secret for centuries, a relic of an ancient time when humanity had been at its peak. Now, it was humanity's last hope. Meanwhile, General Core and his forces were preparing for the final push. The Empire had regrouped, and their fleet was more formidable than ever. The human resistance had caused irreparable damage, but the Empire was determined to crush them once and for all. Core's eyes flickered over the battlefield, watching as humanity's ships continued to put up fierce resistance. "Have you located the source of their power yet?" Core barked at his officers. "No, sir," one officer replied, his voice tense. "But we're detecting something unusual. A massive surge of energy coming from the Genesis." Core's heart skipped a beat. The Genesis, what could they possibly have hidden now? Increase the scan power. "I want to know what we're dealing with," Core ordered, as the Empire's forces attempted to close in on humanity. The sheer force of the energy emanating from the Genesis was impossible to ignore. The entire battlefield was charged with the feeling of something enormous, something ancient, awakening. The Empire's fleet hesitated. They had faced humanity's best efforts so far. But now they realized they were up against something they had no way of understanding. "General, we've located it," the officer said, his voice filled with awe. "It's a ship, a massive, weaponized warship. Its design doesn't match anything in our records. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Kor's eyes widened. In disbelief. "Impossible. How can they have something like that?" He didn't have time for an answer. The human fleet had just unleashed their secret weapon. And the scale of the battle shifted in an instant. Back on the Genesis, Carter stood before the massive control panel, watching as the ancient warship began to emerge from its hidden hangar. It was colossal, so large it dwarfed even the most massive ships of the Empire. The ship's surface was covered in strange, alien markings that pulsed with energy. Its weapons were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen, with massive cannon-like turrets that could obliterate entire fleets in a single blast. The energy readings from the ship were off the charts. Its power was undeniable. And as it moved into battle position, Carter knew this was the moment they had been waiting for. The battle was about to shift in humanity's favor, but this weapon came at a cost. Once it was unleashed, there would be no going back. "Ready the main cannon," Carter ordered, his voice steady as he addressed the crew. "We're sending a message they'll never forget." The crew scrambled to get the weapon online. As the ship's energy systems hummed with life, a deep, resonant sound echoed throughout the ship. The massive warship's cannon charged up, its immense power building with each passing second. The first blast from the weapon sent shockwaves through space, a beam of pure energy so powerful it ripped through the enemy fleet like paper. The explosion was deafening, and the enemy ships were torn apart in an instant. The blast illuminated the battlefield, casting an eerie glow over the destruction. Humanity had just made its mark. The Empire's forces were in disarray, their confidence shattered. The real power of humanity had just been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. On the Empire's flagship, Kor watched in horror as the massive blast from the Genesis decimated their front lines. The shockwave reached his ship, and he felt it in his bones. The blast had wiped out entire fleets in seconds, leaving only scattered debris and wreckage in its wake. "What is this?" Kor whispered, staring at the destruction. "We've underestimated them," the officer said, his voice trembling. "This is no ordinary resistance. We're facing a new kind of power." But Kor wasn't about to admit defeat. Humanity had dealt the first blow, but the Empire still had power. They would fight back. They had to. Back on the Genesis, Carter stood with his crew, watching the aftermath of the blast. The first victory had been won, but the war was far from over. The Empire would retaliate, there was no doubt about it, but now humanity had shown them that they were no longer the underdog. The Empire would have to reckon with humanity's true power. And that was something the galaxy had never seen before. "We've done it," Sophia said, a quiet awe in her voice. "No," Carter replied, his voice calm, but filled with purpose. "We've just begun." A new era begins. The battle was far from over. The energy from humanity's ultimate weapon, unleashed with the full fury of the Genesis, had shaken the Empire to its foundations. In the wreckage of their fleet, the shattered remains of once proud battleships drifted aimlessly through space, a grim reminder of humanity's unexpected power. But despite the destruction, the Empire was not one to bow easily. The Galactic Empire, a force that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, would not go quietly into the night. As the Genesis hovered in space, its engines humming with power, Carter stared out at the debris field left behind by the Empire's defeated fleet. The silence that followed the blast was deafening. The once massive Empire fleet was in chaos. But Carter knew it wouldn't be long before they regrouped. The real challenge had just begun. "We've made a dent," Carter said, turning to his crew. "But they'll come back. We're not done yet. We've shown them what we're capable of. But we need to show them we can finish this." Sophia stepped forward, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Captain, we've broken their front lines, but they still have the most advanced ships in the galaxy. We're outnumbered, and we don't know how much longer we can keep fighting like this." "We'll make it work," Carter replied firmly, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "We have something they don't resolve, and we have something they'll never have: humanity's will to fight, no matter the odds." Back aboard the Empire's flagship, General Kor stood before a holographic display, his hands clenched at his sides. The full extent of the damage was now clear. The fleet had been decimated, and the Empire's forces were struggling to regroup. His officers watched him with bated breath, knowing the stakes of this war had just been raised beyond comprehension. "We need to act fast," Kor said, his voice cold with rage. "Prepare the reinforcements. We'll need everything we've got to push them back. We can't let this stand. His second-in-command, Captain Vera, turned to face him, her face grim. General, the human fleet is unlike anything we've encountered. Their tactics, their weapons, we underestimated them. And now it's too late. They're not just a threat, they've turned the tide of the entire war. Kor's fists clenched. He knew she was right. The humans had caught them off guard. The attacks had been swift, precise, and devastating. They hadn't expected Earth to have this kind of power, nor had they anticipated the sheer determination behind every human decision. It was as if they had come prepared for war, while the Empire had been too comfortable in its position of power. We need to stop them before they rally the galaxy against us, Kor growled. If we let them get any further, we'll be facing a unified resistance from every corner of the galaxy. We can't let that happen. On the Genesis, Carter knew that every moment counted. The Empire would not let this defeat go unanswered. Humanity had just lit the fuse of a war that would engulf the galaxy, and now it was up to Earth to ensure they were not crushed by the inevitable retaliation. We've sent our message, Carter said, looking over his crew. But now it's time to make sure the galaxy hears it. We're not here to negotiate, we're here to take what's ours. Prepare for the next phase of the plan. We're going to make sure the Empire knows that this is only the beginning. Sophia nodded, her face set with determination. Captain, the message we sent has only just begun. Carter interrupted. The Empire doesn't understand us yet, but they will. We've just proven that we have the strength to take on their fleets, their entire empire. And if they want to fight to the bitter end, we'll give it to them. Earth doesn't kneel. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the message from humanity echoed. In every corner of space, carried on every communication channel and broadcast to every world. Earth's defiance had spread like wildfire, and the Empire's once secure grip on the galaxy was slipping. Resistance movements, once scattered and small, were now rallying behind the symbol of humanity's defiance. The humans were no longer isolated. They had become the rallying cry for all who had been oppressed, all who had lived under the Empire's boot for too long on distant worlds. People watched in awe as humanity's fleet continued to move across the galaxy, striking at the heart of the Empire with a determination that had been unheard of until now. The Empire, for the first time, was afraid. The humans had shown them what they were capable of, and they weren't backing down. Back on Earth, the war was no longer just a series of isolated battles. It had become a global cause. Governments, civilians, and resistance fighters alike were rallying to the banner of humanity's fight for freedom. Earth, once a forgotten and insignificant world in the far reaches of the galaxy, was now the center of an intergalactic struggle for survival. Humanity had proven they were not just a small rebellion, they were a power to be reckoned with. The Empire, once so sure of their dominance, now faced the reality of a new era. A new galaxy was rising, one where Earth would no longer be a pawn. The future of the galaxy was no longer in the hands of the Empire, it was in humanity's. As the Genesis continued its journey through the stars, Carter and his crew knew that the war was far from over. But with each victory, they took one step closer to securing humanity's future. The battle for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was ready to fight for their place among the stars. The galaxy had been warned, humanity had shown them their strength. Now, it was up to them to ensure that the future of the galaxy belonged to Earth.